Hey, what's going on, guys? And today we're going to be working on a 2008 Nissan Armada. We're going to be replacing the radiator on this vehicle. This vehicle has a leaking radiator. We got an aftermarket radiator that we purchased online. So we're just going to be going through the steps and procedures on how to replace the radiator. All right, let's get into it. All right, guys. So first we're going to start off by removing the negative battery terminal. Then we're going to remove the upper cover for the engine. Then we're going to remove the air intake, and disconnecting it from the mass airflow sensor harness. And then we're going to start loosening up the radiator support bolts that go into the brackets at the top, as well as releasing the cap for the radiator. Keeping in mind that you don't want to do this if the vehicle is pressurized or has been running for a while or the temperature is very hot. So be mindful of that before you release the cap. So we want to start doing a couple of those things on top, and then we'll move on from there. All right, so at this point, before we remove the any of the coolant hoses, we want to start draining the fluid. So I'm going to take the camera down to the bottom. We're going to remove the skid plate at the bottom, and then we're going to gain access to the drain for the radiator and start draining out the fluid. All right, so we're underneath looking at the skid plate. This skid plate is being held on by a couple of 10 millimeters, a couple of very rusty 10 millimeters. And it looks like maybe a couple of 12 or 14 millimeters as well on this vehicle. So we're gonna go ahead and remove this skid plate and try to gain access to the drain fill port on the radiator. All right, guys, so we got access to the radiator drain port. So we're gonna undo that, get a catch pan, and start draining out the coolant. And then we're gonna take it back on top and start doing some, undoing some more parts on top to get this radiator loosened up. All right, so we got the coolant draining out. We're gonna move back on top to start undoing some of the components back on top. All right, so just wanted to point out the 4 nuts on the fan. 4 nuts on the fan, pretty self-explanatory. You can look at the fan and you can see the 4 nuts. So we're gonna go ahead and remove those now. All right, so at this point, we got the 4 nuts removed from the fan. We want to try to pry it back on this fan shroud now that we got it loose, and we want to try to sneak the fan out. And then we're gonna try to sneak the fan shroud out. Just be mindful and be careful not to let the fan fall and hit the radiator, even though we're replacing it. All right, not too bad. Got the fan out. So there are a couple of things you got to be mindful of before you attempt to remove the fan shroud. There is a hose right here that has to be released from the fan shroud. It's just snapped in, so pull that out, snap that out of place. And then there's also a coolant line. Looks like a trans coolant line, which has a clip right here. A little bit of a funny clip to release, but you got to release that as well before you can pull the fan shroud out. All right, so we're gonna attempt to pull out the fan shroud now. All right, got that out. All right, so next steps, there's a couple of lines on the radiator. It looks like that we have to get loose. There's a hose right here with a clamp, and there is another one right behind it, or right underneath it. So the other one, if I could get a better angle, it's located right over here. So right underneath it, there's a hose right here, and one right here. Got to remove the clamps and back the hoses off of the radiator. All right, so we're gonna try to get that done now. All right, so let's go ahead and open up the packaging for the new radiator. See what it looks like. Kind of rough packaging. Hopefully this thing is not damaged. That's one of the disadvantages about ordering things like this online. I mean, save a lot of money, but you run the risk of getting something that's damaged through shipping and just not packaged properly. And honestly, by the looks of it, I think they packaged it pretty poorly. So packaged pretty poorly, as you can see. Got a foam piece right there, one at the bottom right, one at the bottom left, missing the one at the top. That's kind of, it's really simple, but why wouldn't you put the fourth piece to avoid this, radiator from snapping back and forth, and then, just creating a barrier so that something that might be laying on top or laying at, wouldn't damage the radiator. But poor packaging already, so hopefully this thing does work. Right. All right, at a glance, of course, I don't see anything obviously broken or damage on it, but I'm definitely gonna have to do a little bit more of an inspection on it to try to see and make sure that this thing ain't, it's okay to use and put in. I think I do see something that's broken already, honestly. So, looks like we got a tab right here that's broken. Could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure this tab that we're seeing on this side right here is supposed to be one located right here. So gonna have to figure out something about that. All right, so we're working our way back down to the bottom so that we can undo a couple of things. We've got trans cooler line right here going into the radiator. We got to disconnect that from the clamp. We got another line, another hose right here disconnected from this clamp, and then the lower radiator hose, remove that. And then we're gonna see what else needs to be done after that. So let's take care of that now. All right, so next step, we have some 8mm bolts that are securing the radiator in at these little slots right here. So at these slots, there's 8mm bolts. We got to access that, release that. It's like a bracket that's holding the radiator forward. So let's try to get that out now. I'm anticipating these bolts are going to break. They're very rusted. Surprisingly, the first one didn't break. All right, that didn't break either. Very surprised. So I actually broke a couple of clamps. They just kind of broke it. The pieces deteriorated, broken, the spring clamps. Lost a couple of clamps and just broke into pieces. So I got to do some replacements on those. All right, so look, we got a lot of access right now. I think I pretty much got it released from the bottom. All the hoses disconnected. So gonna try to pull up on it now. Actually, I do see one hose that I didn't get off yet. I was having a little trouble with earlier. And I figured I'd get it to this point to get better access to that hose. So let me try to get that line off now. And then we're gonna try to pull this thing up. All right, so we're finally at the point where we had got the radiator loose. So I believe we can pull it up now to get it out of the vehicle finally. Just keep in mind a little tip. The condenser is actually sitting, of course, in front of the radiator, but it's actually sitting on top of the radiator. The radiator has about two bracket, kind of like a extension bracket slots that the radiator sits inside in a little compartment, like a little circle, little hole compartment. So they sit in there. So you have to kind of basically without undoing the condenser, you have to kind of pull it up and pull it towards the front of the vehicle to free it from the radiator before you pull out the radiator, right? So we're gonna go ahead and do that now. All right, guys, just to give you some perspective on what I was referring to, the condenser sits on these ears, brackets of the radiator. So you have to pull the condenser up and towards the front of the vehicle to clear it from the radiator so that you have enough room to clear the radiator out of the vehicle, all right? So now that we got it out, we're gonna prep the new radiator to get ready to go in. So we'll get to that shortly. All right, so we got the new radiator prepped up. We got the rubber grommets, such as these right here, swapped over from the old one. We got these metal bolt tabs swapped over from the old one, and we have the transmission cooler swapped over from the old one. So we're gonna go ahead and proceed with the installation now. Putting this back in reverse order. All right, so we got all of the transmission cooler lines secured. We got the two top trans lines, transmission fluid lines secure, the cooler lines. We got the two bottom ones secure. We're gonna secure the top radiator hose as well as the bottom. So after we do that, I think the next step is probably gonna be, we're going to make sure the radiator is sitting in place with the condenser. And we're gonna start putting the mounting bolts in for the radiator just to secure that into place. Then after that, we're gonna probably mount, put the fan back into place. We're gonna put the fan back with the fan shroud. All right, so let's start there and see how that turns out. All right. So now we're gonna go in with the fan shroud. We're just gonna kind of set it in place, keep it in there kind of loose, and try to leave a little bit of room to sneak the fan in. And while the fan shroud is down in there sitting next to the radiator, then we're gonna mount the actual fan on. Once we get the fan nice and secured, and then we're actually gonna bolt on the fan shroud by the two ears at the top of the radiator. All right. So we're just gonna stick this down in there. I just noticed a mistake that I made. So don't do the same thing I just did. I actually put on the hose, and I'm thinking about it right now. I'm not gonna be able to get past this hose. So I'm gonna have to undo this hose. Not a big deal. Just take the clamp off, undo the hose, because the fan shroud has to get past the hose, all right? So don't make that mistake. All right, so a bit of a pro tip. Um, it's it's been kind of a struggle to get the nuts, the mountain nuts on this fan. There's just very little clearance between where the stud tip starts, uh, and then the distance from that to the base of the fan is probably less than an inch. It's probably like 5/8 of an inch. So it's really hard, especially if you got like big hands, to get the nut on there started. So a little pro tip, something I learned a while ago. So what you can do is just put the nut on a ratchet wrench like this. You just want to make sure you have it on the right side to tighten up. Put the nut on the ratchet wrench, keep it straight. Just lower it down to the stud that you want to put it on, like so. And just slowly start to ratchet until the threads catch, right? So kind of like that. You can put some pressure on the back of it to help you get it started, and that's how you can get it on. All right, that's a little pro tip to kind of help you get it on there, because it's really not a lot of clearance to use just your finger to get it on there. It's pretty tight spot. All right, so we got the fan secured with the 4 nuts and nice and tight. So we just want to continue on fastening the fan shroud. So we're gonna fasten the fan shroud right here. I think it's a 8mm, 2 8mm bolts, and then there are a couple of slots for the lines to secure onto the fan shroud on the sides. We're gonna go ahead and get those secured. Once we got that done, then we're gonna go ahead and start putting back in the upper air intake, going to the throttle body and to the air box, and then we're gonna put the cover on. We're gonna top it off with coolant, and we're gonna fire it up. We should be ready to go after that. All right, so let's continue on. All right, so all we got left is the top engine cover, and then we got the bottom skid plate. So we're gonna get those on now. And like I said, after that, we're gonna top it off with coolant and start it up and inspect, make sure everything is nice and secured and sealed up. There's no leaks. See if we can wrap this job up, all right? All right, guys, so we got the vehicle wrapped up. We got the coolant topped off. We got the reservoir topped off as well. We kind of burped the system a little bit. We let it run, and we inspected for leaks. We have no leaks going on, so that's definitely a good thing. We're gonna take it for a ride and make sure that everything checks out right as far as the vehicle temperature, it doesn't overheat, and then the system completely burps out. But that's pretty much how you do a radiator on this 2008 Nissan Armada. So if you have any questions, leave them down in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And I appreciate you watching. And I'll catch you on the next one. Thanks.